Yes, it should.
Let me go over here.
Oh, you know what? We're just. The gong has rang, dang it. That means go to the bathroom, get a drink, get some pizza.
Take a seat.
Yeah, that too.
Yes. Any progress on development?
Yeah. Camping trips a go. If you haven't, actually I'll make an announcement for it.
Camping trip.
Camping. Where you go downhill mountain biking, Hunter.
Sounds like it's that year.
No, it was great. You sweat out the alcohol. It was great. We luckily were the ones smart enough to stay away from the alcohol before we went. It was just hangover. All right, can everyone see the screen okay?
Yep.
Can everyone hear me okay? Sweet. Great, well, welcome to DenverScript. More gusto, come on. Easy now. Awesome, so what's up? So these meetups don't happen for free knowledge, free beer, and free food for, you know, if I pay it out of my own pocket, I'd be screwed. So CoTown, if you don't know who CoTown is, you're in the building right now. They are sponsoring the venue and the beer. Ross Search Partners, they're giving us the food. So, and Kareem over there. So if you were in the job market, you should, come on, raise your hands or stand up. Not them. Sit down, Kyle. Talk to them afterwards. If you're in the job market, definitely great people to talk to. Epic Brewing, they're nice enough to give us a slight discount on the beer. 10%. I am working with Odell Brew Company, so maybe we'll be switching. We'll see.
You better hope that you figured out with Odell before Epic sees the stream.
They might hear you too. They're like right there. If you're listening,
It's okay. Eric won't know. He's out of town. Denver Pizza Company is giving us a discount on the pizza. And also, Friend Masters, we give away 3 of these at each one of our meetups. We do not tell you how that works, so.
It's the same every time.
But for people that don't know.
Right.
Surprise!
Reruns. I haven't seen it. It's new to you.
Does anyone here not know what Friend Masters is?
Nice.
Okay, Friend Masters, it's an online learning for front end from the masters.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you know people like, does anyone here know Steve Kinney?
Yeah.
He's a local. He is also one of the instructors for Friend Masters, or Kyle Simpson, or Kent Dobbs, Sarah Drasner.
Yeah.
So if any of those names ring a bell, it's cool shit. So awesome, this section I like to call What's Going On JS Land. It's a good time for you to announce anything that you see in the industry that you're really excited about. Guillermo is going to do his normal rattle off of what happened in Chrome.
Because it's exciting. All right.
No, this is all good shit.
All right, what's going on in JavaScript land? So, like we always do, we'll kick it off by telling you some of the stuff that we're excited about, what I'm excited about, and then we'll have you guys go. So, as usual, whenever a new Chrome comes out, we go over some of the cool stuff there. If you want to see any of the things that we're going over, we'll put a link to all of this, including the highlights video, which goes through all of these things, and we do code examples. So cool that you can follow along there. The release notes are there as well. Okay, so first one. This is so long ago. Oh yeah, so when you're looking across all of your different, this is actually really neat. When you're looking across in your network panel, you can actually now do a find across all your different all the different network headers, and so you can like filter it with just like a simple like search like you would normally do. And also, you can click a little checkbox, and it also handles regex, or regex, whichever one you prefer to say, searches. If you want to do like really complex searches for very specific or omit certain things for everything coming across the wire. So that one's really neat. Oh, this one is so cool. So click on the little GIF there. You can now stop infinite loops that are running in your code. So,
It's so low.
it has a maximize button somewhere.
Enhance.
Ads. Oh, now you went to the, no, this is the actual, we're not going to watch the whole video.
Why not?
Okay, click out of here. And then it's right there.
TV or?
Oh, that one. Okay, great. Okay,
That's bad
so now,
iconography.
if you have an infinite loop going, you can hold and click the play button and hit stop, and it just stops it. So one more time, it's only like a 10-second thing. He's going to go and click, and this code that you guys here actually started an infinite loop. You pause it, you click and hold the play button and hit stop, it'll stop whatever is stuck in a loop right then.
How do you know it's key?
Because it's Case, the guy that like narrates the things. Isn't that cool?
What if your browser's responsive? What happens? Is it too late?
Yeah, I think you're probably screwed. But if you, I guess it's like if you have an infinite loop and it's not so bad that you can get DevTools open, right? then this is how you'd stop it. So anyway, so yeah, I thought that was super cool. So that's that. There's actually a way to do that now. Yeah, I don't know. Again, this is like 2 weeks ago. The styles pane, what is this? Oh, this is actually kind of cool. So the styles pane, similar like with some IDEs that do this, any colors that you have that are either computed or they're like hex values or whatever else, you now get that nice little like square with like the preview of what the color is. So if it's both one that you're typing in yourself or ones that are from your code, you can see what it's supposed to look like, and then you can see from there if it's actually being applied or not to your code. Audit panel got better, and security panel now shows some big transparency. That's it. I was really excited about the infinite loops. Okay, what are you guys excited about? Anything at all? It could be super obscure, super general.
Oh, there's one more in here. Mozilla, in I think September will officially release this, but I think you can get it in nightly right now, where you can actually, in your DevTools, manipulate clip paths. So you don't actually have to know what those numbers do anymore. It's pretty awesome. Just check out the video. We'll post all these after tonight, though.
Sweet. Yes, sir.
So Airbnb had a great article and a series about React Native. I believe that it was awesome clickbait, and I think a lot of people were like, oh, React Native's dead. But really, if you read through the article, there's a great post where 70% of their engineers said that they would use React Native to give it a project. Also, they're not pure React Native, they're like some hybrid thing. And Facebook came back and said, we're going to double down on React Native. So
awesome.
Awesome React Native stuff.
Well, the clickbaity title that you like danced around and didn't say is that like Airbnb essentially said,
No React Native.
right? Because Airbnb, like you guys don't know, is like the biggest like flagship React Native user in the industry. Like whenever we talk about React Native, like no, real apps can get made. People are like, look, Airbnb's written in React Native, right? And Airbnb just came out with an article saying we're done with React Native. So you're right. So everybody was like, wait, what? And it was like it was a how many part series? It was like a pretty long
series.
Yeah, it was a 5-part article series about like just hear us out, like here's how it played out. So yeah, I totally forgot. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yes, Kyle.
Ryan Dahl did a big fucking complaining thing about Node. So if you don't know, Ryan Dahl created Node.
Oh yeah, wasn't it like the 10 things he regrets?
Yeah, so his regrets about Node, which is also, he's making another version of it called Deno. That's attempting to fix these things. I actually don't agree with almost any of his complaints, but it's worth being aware of.
Yeah, totally. So.
Something else notable about that is it runs TypeScript too, native, I think. So it's a TypeScript runtime where if you're not familiar with TypeScript, you always have to compile it. So whether this actually lands or not is, what's that? Is yet to rigorous. So yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, TypeScript runtime.
Okay. Yes. Oh, that's right. You get a Front-End Masters membership. Man, I am really bad at this. Okay, so Front-End Masters, if I can add a little bit to what Matt said, to the great description he gave about Front-End Masters, is an online, see, I fucked it up even worse. Front-End Masters is a subscription-based site that you can go and take all different kinds of courses, and their main target audience is, if you're a beginner, that works well too, but also they target, especially if you're like past like the very junior stage and you want to like get even better at what you're doing, a lot of their topics are very deep dives that like might run like 10 or 12 hours, and you get some really, really good education from people who are like really, really good in the industry. So, so get with us after. We'll give you a code for 3 months to front-end masters. It's like $30 a month, so it's like $100 value, so that's pretty neat. Yeah. So yes, good for you. Round of applause. Yay! Okay. Sorry. Good call. Thank you. Who else had something else? I totally killed our momentum. Come
I
on.
also love how you insinuated I fucked up.
No, I insinuated that you gave a terrible description of what the site was, and then right after, my start was even worse than yours. So it's kind of all worked itself out. Okay. Anyone else? No? Nobody? No one's excited about anything.
Vue CLI 3 came out.
What's that?
Vue CLI 3.
Vue CLI 3.
It's totally like new web app config, supports plugins, and like it has a GUI also. I've never used the GUI, but apparently it has one. But like very good for scaffolding out and managing Vue apps. Kind of like create React apps, except it's more than that, and it's less than Ember or Angular CLI. So it's
Sweet.
So Kyle, you're working with UI now.
Yes.
So they have their own version of a native kind of a thing, right? How's that coming along?
And also, that came out this week, I think. It's a Vue native. It's like the goal is to basically be like React Native, but for Vue. I'm not aware of anybody who's used it yet. Like I said, I think it came out this week.
Sweet. Garrett, just something else?
I was just gonna say the concurrency thing.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you and I thought of the same thing.
Like one mind.
Do you remember what the TLDR was with that?
Yeah, so I think, like the TLDR, I think is that you can do like some kind of multi-threading stuff in 10.5. It's not just
Concurrency
like
or parallelism?
I think parallel
it's-
is you.
Well, they said, I think they used the word concurrency.
They said, well, yeah, they're like kind of, you can conflate the two, but like I think you can spawn off processes and without just like doing a child.spawn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, pretty much like back, like before this version, Node, you could multi-thread it in like this totally ass-backwards way that it was, I air quote multi-threading because it wasn't, it was just a workaround. This is their workaround without you having to do anything by the sounds of it.
I'm gonna look it up because that was probably wrong.
Yeah, we're pretty good.
I just saw, I was like, oh, cool, they have that. Seems relevant.
Yeah, pretty much saw the title of the tweet, went to the article, read about 2 sentences and stopped.
It's not worker threads. I think it's like,
Oh,
imagine
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
service
That's what, service work.
Yeah.
That, which is what Chrome's had for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Anyone else?
That is parallelism.
Cool. Not at all related to JavaScript, but Uruguay had a huge win over Russia yesterday, 3-0. God, that was so fun to watch. You guys
Wait,
aren't? You
is
guys
there any
aren't?
Russians?
No. No, there's no Russians here. There's
Yeah!
one Uruguay. Yeah, if you guys aren't watching the World Cup games, you should. They've actually been really fun to watch. Even if you're not a big soccer fan, the elimination rounds start literally this weekend. So have a beer. Saturday at noon, Uruguay's playing again. We're going to try and beat Portugal. So watch the cup. It's a good time. Thanks, guys.
Go sports ball.
Sports.
Sports ball!
Sports.
Teams! Footy ball.
Oh, yeah, Mexico's been great.
Alright, so this is a great time for anybody that has job announcements. Feel free to just raise your hand and we'll point you out. If you have a job to announce, let me know.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Cool. So my name is Jason Waldrop, CTO at GigSmart. We're basically the Uber for workers. So we are hiring React Native devs at anywhere from mid to super senior season level. In addition to that, something new that just happened yesterday, we're actually extending our employee referral plan to everyone in the world. So if you find me a mid, $1,500. You find me a senior, $4,500. So if you want to find me afterwards, you got some people, or you want to bring yourself, I'll give you the fee for bringing yourself.
Nice.
very competitive market right now, and we are also looking for lots of front-end stuff. So we need like free mats in different areas here, at Highlands Ranch, Lakewood, downtown, in various industries. We've got a blockchain client that's doing some cool, interesting things, and fitness client and a software educational client as well. So both contract and firm, React and Angular, but just aside from what framework someone has used, just really strong JavaScript people. So once again, I'm Corrine, Zandy, roster partners, and if we have to sneak out before the end, just find me on LinkedIn and we can follow up.
If those blockchain clients have anything to do with Ethereum, I know a few people.
I think it's EOS, right?
I don't know.
It's interesting, you know, when they're...
I know the buzzwords. It's all learning.
Yeah.
I don't know shit about
I know
cryptocurrency.
Blockchain.
Yeah, pretty
Not
much.
Bitcoin associated.
Two things. So if you've never given a talk at DenverScript, you should come talk to us. We're always looking for people to give talks. If you've never given one before, always happy to help you put something together. It's a really good way to get your feet wet. You know, practice for like an upcoming conference or something like that. Another thing. So I work at a startup called Randori. I'm looking for a senior front-end engineer. So if that sounds interesting, which how would it? Because I said nothing about it.
Do you want to be called a senior, make money, and work at a startup? That's pretty much
with magic hackers doing magic spells that break computers.
For good.
For good.
As in the CEO hacked into a place through a fucking toaster.
All
right, that was pretty awesome.
There you go. All right. You got to that.
He told me that.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. He told me that when we met before you were
Yeah.
late
So
to
yeah,
the
these
meeting.
guys, they are like nation state level hackers. We're building a product on them. It's kind of cool. That sounds interesting.
It's just like the movie Hackers, too.
Yeah, it's lots of
My name is Greg. I work for Amazon Web Services, and we're hiring web developers right now. So, if anybody's interested in talking, or go to Amazon.jobs.
What's the tech stack?
So, our tech stack is React, but we don't necessarily need someone who knows React. As long as they're very well developed, we'd be interested in talking.
Cool. So, any other job announcements? Here, I got one. It's totally the wrong crowd, but I'll take a shot. We're the company I work for is Connectify. We're looking for a Ruby on Rails developer. All right, I'll talk to you later. See, there's always one. So, all right, everyone that announced a job, will you please stand up? Everybody looking for a job, these are the faces you should be talking to afterwards. That's it. That's all I have. You just should know who it is you should go talk to. Not a job announcement, but I thought I'd at least make somewhat of an announcement. Does anyone here know Develop Denver conference?
Yeah.
That was not as many hands as I would like to have seen, but it is a local conference. It's a 2-day conference here in Denver. This is our 7th year. There's been a lot of talk whether it was happening or not because Drew Dahlman, who originally started the conference, has moved away to New York. But luckily, Kyle Coberly has become our new Drew. He is the guy you will hear over top of everything. The answer is, it's happening! Most likely be the first 2 weeks of October, like somewhere in there. So just a heads up of that. On top of that, the other thing that we did, we started it last year. It's called Develop Denver Unplugged, and it is a camping trip. Yes, a lot of nerds going camping is a lot of fun.
It's a really good time.
Yes, as Guillermo can attest, we fucking knocked it out of the park.
It was a really good time.
I mean, with enough booze, anything is.
Beer,
so-
sleeping bag,
yeah.
beer, sleeping bag.
Yeah, you know, sleep under stars well.
Is the 10 a.m. open bar staying or going?
It's actually at 9 a.m. So that we are taking open signups right now. It's developdenverunplugged.org. I'll post a link to it later. Last year we kind of like so it's happening the last weekend of August. So August 31st, September 1, September 2nd. Sign up. We're opening it up to everyone just because it's kind of hard to make a date for a weekend-long camping trip, and also opening it to non-conference attendees, so anybody can join. So go to that website, join up on the sign-up list, and be part of the lottery. Anything else, Kyle, for Develop Denver?
No, it's going to be a banger this year. So we're currently locking down locations, which drives dates, but like a lot of like daily active work being done on this right now. Hope we have a lot of big announcement about this soon.
We have Trello boards. That's serious.
Wow. I have to say it's my favorite conference. Period.
It is. If no one has been around it, it heavily revolves around alcohol. As in, we have a Balmer Peak hackathon usually. So anytime you have to test your code, you have to take a drink.
Oh!
Yeah. If anybody really wants to know what that looks like, Garrett can tell you a story. No, you probably don't remember year 2, but. Yeah. Anyways, it's an amazing time. Best conference ever.
So
Oh,
what is
Blue.
on the list? Oh, that's, well, I brought you on this like volunteers.
Oh, yeah. So right now, like we have a small number of intense tasks. So like we're handling those right now. That turns around into like a large number of less intense tasks as this goes on. And so like we'll need a lot of volunteers for everything from helping us with audio, video stuff, setting up chairs, taking down chairs, helping getting like our signage up, all kinds of different opportunities to volunteer for this. And people who volunteered in the past, like it's a lot of fun because you get to interact with the conference in a very different way. You get to hang out with really cool people. You get to see some of those positions, especially like registration and sign up stuff. You get to see everybody from the conference. So those opportunities will be announced as they become available.
Great. You'll also get to see Kyle with a comm set this year. That's gonna be fun. All right. I think that's it. Brandon, you ready?
Yep. You guys want more beer? Pizza? I snagged a bunch. I can get you one.
You do the HTML one?
It's one of these here.
Yeah, that's right.
You have a sticker of King on your
It is indeed. I talk to it when I'm nervous or scared.
Does he review your code?
That's pretty.
You were here for her last one. Why isn't she here?
I don't know. I'm gonna hassle her though. By the way, is that a Steve Kenny sticker? It is. You guys heard it? No. You just have a Steve Kenny sticker. Just got a Steve Kenny sticker. That's amazing. He's had a bunch on his desk and nobody wanted him. I kind of wanted to take like 30 of them without telling him and then just put like 30 of his faces on my laptop. So you work at Centric? Okay, so there's that connection. Yes. I just thought maybe you had a Steve Kenny sticker. No, I mean, I would have taken it. I would have taken it. Yeah, okay. But yeah, it's, I couldn't resist. Now I get it. You won't tell me where he got them though. Because I would definitely order more. Yeah. I mean, I have a, he's worried about it pending. I think that's why he doesn't tell me or some of the other people in the office. What's that? Cool, just go ahead.
Get started!
All right, Brandon, everybody.
Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
Nope. All right. Yeah, my name is Brandon Barrett. Here's my contact info up there. I write JavaScript at a company downtown called SendGrid. So the talk I'm going to give is going to be short. I'm going to start the timer so I don't ramble past my time. Really, this is just a technology that I discovered recently. It just kind of blew me away that I'd never really heard of it even. So I kind of just like YOLO'd a slide deck together. And I want to present it to people, and those especially who have more context, like in a server environment, or if you are very familiar with WebSockets, like maybe you can just like pitch in, or if there's a confluence of ideas, would be great, because I've used it a little bit, and it's a candidate for some of the technological challenges we face at where I work. But I don't know too much about it, so I'm just going to like give an overview and try and just give everybody a basic understanding, I guess kind of bring you up to speed to where I'm at, unless you already know what's up with server-sent events, and then maybe you can enlighten us on some of the finer points of this stuff. So, server-sent events, like off the cuff, well-defined, long-lived connection over HTTP, similar to WebSockets-ish, like sorta, kinda. That's like that's what you want to think about. Like that's what I thought when I first sort of read about this, and when I was evaluating the technology for use in some of our applications. So they are a long-lived connection. The crazy part about this, if I can't move like while I talk, I have a hard time. Anyways, so they do fit kind of in between. This is HTTP requests, discrete GET posts and whatnot, and this is sockets, I guess. That's server-sent events. They are their own thing, but they do behave similar to WebSockets. What they are is effectively, like to oversimplify it, it's a unidirectional WebSocket that uses HTTP instead of the WebSocket TCP-based. Well, I know it's all TCP-based, but this is squarely HTTP. The headers are HTTP. It's an HTTP long-lived connection. And it's basically for receiving information. So it's something you can subscribe to the same way you would a socket, you just can't push things back up to it. So this is, you can't see the source. I got this from a good blog post on it. This just sort of illustrates the sort of challenges that you might face if you can't like get a WebSocket, for example. Sometimes that can be a real limitation based on your API technology. You need to update people, and long polling or repeated requests is like that. I know it's sort of demonized and like thrown under the bus as like just trash development, but I wouldn't blame anyone for doing it. Like sometimes it's necessary, but it's this is just sort of like why you would want to opt for like a hot data source if you can, because this is basically the sort of entropy of your system. Like you're making requests, you're doing the handshake and all that, and this is sort of this is what you would get with a socket or server-sent events. You connect once, and then you just let it rain down on you. Oh man, time's going fast. So it helped me to understand this stuff by sort of comparing. Similar to WebSockets, stays open, gives you updates automatically. Lightweight approach to broadcasting data. It's just like very little sent over the wire, very lean in terms of like what is going with the data that you're trying to communicate. It gives developers means of broadcasting to many clients. So one model is to say like if everybody wants to subscribe to a fire hose. Like your fire hose could be WebSocket, could be server-side events. Unlike WebSockets, sort of unfortunately, you can't push messages back upstream. They don't have quite as high level support. Namely, the Microsoft school of thought does not incorporate server-sent events. That's probably the biggest reason that not a lot of people are using them, but they're really easy to polyfill because they are HTTP. So unlike WebSockets in a righteous way, also you can't push messages back upstream because sometimes, like, if you don't need to, then why introduce complexity? Like, it's never introduce complexity unless you absolutely have to. In general, it's a good rule. It's HTTP. Some of the benefits we'll get into later. Automatic retries and disconnect handling. That's something that you don't have to roll yourself. You don't have to do like sort of keep alive, ping pong, retry this and then drop and then open a new connection. Like, there are all sorts of things that you might have to do to keep a WebSocket healthy and to let your users know, like, hey, we can't hear anything right now. All of that's baked into server-sent events, and the handshake is just a little bit easier since it's HTTP. So it's there's a section where I'll get into sort of the advocacy points if you want to use it, like how you can sort of communicate the value to other people and say, hey, this might be a good technology to use, and this is why you want to use it, especially if they're not front-end developers. So I won't go through this too long because these are weeds that I always stay too long in. But the implementation is real simple. The event source object is basically everything that you need in order to subscribe to messages that are pushed from the server. And so there, you can see here there's this update process function. Every time there's a message event, I parse it and I give it to this function. If this was a console log, you would just get like that JSON object like printed in console, and that's it. As far as the browser goes, that's just the native APIs to access that functionality. Server side, this is very dependent, but just to give you an idea, I know a lot of people are, well, this is Node, and there are Node developers in here. So these are the headers that that indicate that you are opening an event stream and that the browser can like hold on to it. And so you set your headers, and then here there's more code. It could be a little bit more simple, but in Node, like, it's depending on your technology, you might echo or emit or however you want to do it. You're just publishing, you're outputting messages directly to that connection. That means still have time. Still have time.
Finish when you finish.
Yeah. All right. Debugging. There's an event stream. So this is your network panel. You can look at event streams. There's a dedicated interface for them, and you can see the message history, very similar to Socket. Socket has one as well. It's a little bit more well-defined in the DevTools because unlike Sockets, it's not just frames that can be kind of whatever. There's a defined shape for server-sent event message payloads. And while you can throw any, there's like most, well-defined formats, there's one sort of Wild West attribute. In this case, it's data that is like, you can put whatever you want in it, but you do have things like ID and type. There's only 4: ID, type, retry, and data. And I'll talk about those in a little bit. Demo. So this is just a real simple demo that just kind of, it's that code you saw earlier, the functions that were not defined there, just spit divs into other divs. And so you can hit test SSE notification, hit it a few more times, and there's just like a loop that's just like emitting on that channel. And so anybody who's subscribed to this channel gets those updates. So you just, like we saw in the image earlier, just let it rain down. So advocacy points. Oh, wow. I think this is actually quick enough. So this is kind of like how maybe you might want to talk about this with other people who might, you want to shake hands with in the development process for implementing technology. They're very easy to implement. They don't require a separate server. It's just part of the HTTP spec. So most technologies that deal in HTTP will have a way of handling this for you. And really, you just need to set the headers and then emit at that entry point, and you'll be good to go. So the implementation on the server side, I think, is pretty simple as well. So firewall, I know, can be a little bit tricky. I don't know all the pitfalls there, but with sockets, you have concerns about, especially if you're managed hosting, that type of situation. If you don't have access to certain parts of the stack, mainly the firewall, it can be difficult to, that can affect whether you want to stand up your own socket TCP server, or if you want to sort of plug it into your current web server. The regularity they enforce is nice. It keeps it simple, and since you do have easy polyfills on the client side, it can be a progressive upgrade, or for the most part, if you sort of think about all the various libraries in the JavaScript world as a Swiss Army knife, this tool in general, I see it as a more simple use case personally. That's just how I've imagined it. It's if you maybe you sent a CSV to be parsed, and it's asynchronous, so you don't the server may not give you a response right away, but it's not super long. It's maybe 5 seconds. Notification type stuff. That's the first. That's what led me to sort of find this technology. So, anyways, that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions or things to add? Yeah.
So I don't know if you noticed off the top of your head, but it sounds like you alluded to it before. Do you happen to know, if the server drops the connection, will the client be instantiated automatically, or do you have to listen to that and do that yourself?
It should. I think it does. I know mostly what I played around with was how the health disconnect it in a healthy way, and you can give it a 204 no content, and then it'll stop. But if it can't, event source itself is built to retry.
Oh,
And so I don't know what you need to do in terms of your server, but that has facilities for handling.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly.
What do the headers do on the client side? Do they enforce anything about how it's parsed, or?
Well, I mean, I don't know exactly what the handshake looks like behind the scenes, but that information is part of the event source implementation. It just needs to know, or actually, it's more informative if you look at the network tab, I would imagine, because it knows how to treat it in a specific way. Mainly, it knows it needs to keep its connection open, and it's not going to time out. It's going to retry, and yeah.
Is that so? I noticed in that little node implementation that you had 2 new lines at the end of the message. Was that part of is that how you would notify the client hey, this message is complete, or is that part of the protocol? Or?
Yeah, you separate the different items. Yeah, in your message payload, everything is separated by new line characters. So those attributes that I was talking about, which I thought I put in the slides, those are just separated by new line, which is kind of weird. It's all text. That's the format. It's not, you don't send blobs or anything like that over. It's just or array buffers. It's just text, just like HTTP. So. The progressive upgrade?
Yes.
Yeah, so mostly that is so it has good support and everything, but IE is basically the TLDR of it. It's in general, if you want really cool features, there are ways to be smooth about implementing them when they don't exist in all the places they need to be. So if you had, if this were like years and years and years ago, it would be like, okay, cool, WebSockets, like we can use them in this browser, and if anybody comes to our website in a different browser, we're gonna have to tell them tough luck. In general, if you have a progressive upgrade path for any given feature, polyfills is one way to do it, but maybe that this is like a more general, the way I feel about them is that like you have a smooth, it doesn't break critical user experience for anybody. Hopefully it's polyfill, but if not, it's either not critical to be there or you have an alternate UX that covers
the
that.
opposite of like this.
It's all
Yeah.
So HTTP2 kind of negates both WebSockets and server-side events.
Interesting. How so?
Well, because you can do bidirectional communication over HTTP.
Cool. So what would it look like to keep something alive, to just receive updates?
Same way, you keep the socket open, but you can send, it's like server-side events, but you can send data in both directions.
Gotcha.
Then you don't have to do an upgrade path. So it's all over port 80 or port 443.
So what interface on the client would you use to event off of that?
That's a good question. I don't know. I just know that the protocol itself supports bidirectional communication.
Because I've heard this as well, that HTTP2 has a lot of things that just make it way smoother, with sockets in particular, which I imagine would need server-sent events as well. That's an interesting thought. I mean, it would be nice if HTTP2, or I have no idea when and how HTTP3 will drop, but if we can, the more we can unify it, the better. That would be awesome. So, and is this do you know if this is like available functionality in HTTP2 right now?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Use HTTP2.
Weren't there like constraints like, I mean, HTTP2 like was a big Google thing for a while. They were hugely advocating it.
What was the predecessor to HTTP2?
It was like
Speed. Yeah. So HTTP2 is the open standard partnership between Mozilla and Google. But I mean, as far as I know, most of the CDNs today are using it. All the major servers. Node supports HTTP out of the box. So does Nginx and other servers. So you may not know that you're using HTTP2, but you are, especially if you're using the latest version of Node or you're using Go. They will auto-upgrade to HTTP2.
Sure.
You just have to have the right client libraries and server-side libraries to interact with them and send data back and forth over that protocol.
Gotcha. Interesting. Very cool.
That's the piece I'd be curious, because there's like a lot of libraries built around sockets or like long-form requests, or like Socket.io is like this whole cascade of fallbacks.
Right. The most interesting thing about HTTP2 is you can actually update headers. So after the client, with HTTP1, once you get the headers, it's like, okay, all I get is the body now. But what HTTP2 borrowed from WebSockets is frames, and so you actually get like headers and body parts and frames. And so you can update headers. You can change a content type in flight and actually switch HTTP2 to a different content type.
That seems
Pretty
interesting.
Yeah.
That seems really dangerous too.
Yeah. That's really cool.
So
I think with some of that stuff, like some of the developer ergonomics aren't all the way there, which is why they don't get used as much as they could. I put it like kind of in a similar boat to like web workers and service workers, where they solve a lot of everyday problems, but they're still kind of wonky. Like it's sort of like how like XHR used to be. It existed for a long time before people actually used it. But once we got jQuery Ajax, it became a lot easier to like use that. I think that HTTP2, web worker, service worker are kind of waiting for that moment where like ergonomics are all there.
Sure. Any other?
Do you have experience implementing this in a large environment, maybe enterprise environment? If you do, can you talk to that?
No, I haven't. This was something I sort of stumbled on and hackathon. Yeah.
we did SSE with about 1,500 to 10,000 concurrent users over like a 6-month period before implementing WebSockets. It scales pretty well. I mean, Yeah, server-side events, SSE, yeah,
How does it compare to sockets? Is it like easier to stand up or?
way easier. Yeah, I mean, you basically just open an HTTP stream, and it's just a chunk connection. All you're doing is sending, a new line every single time. I mean, to your point, there's a shape to the response, but you're just sending a JSON body, and there's a new line to it.
So what you're saying that the implementation would be pretty trivial in any language,
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you basically just do an io.read, and every time for every line that you get, you can do something.
I only ask because this could be a good solution for a problem.
Yeah. If you're dealing with firewall issues, SSE is great.
Sounds like that might be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah.
Nick, you ready to go? You're next. You're ready now.
Beer, pizza, restroom,
Air conditioning.
all of the things.
Yeah, I kind of talked about it.
Fun little thing to play around with.
You're short. CTO. I got it. This is like as far as dressed up as I get. Yes, I hate dressed up in this.
If I was CTO at a company, I would still come dressed like this.
Here's the problem. All the developers are working with dress so half as well as that, which might be a little scary.
Okay, I get it now. It'd be more like
Birthdays.
shirts with holes in them, specifically right here.
Good to see you.
Thanks for coming out. Yeah, really appreciate it. Yeah, you should. I mean, why do you think your meetup so successful?
What's that?
Thanks for the $100 worth of present.
You guys have JavaScript stickers. Do you put any JavaScript stickers? Magic. Yeah, no, we've gotten some, but if you. As long as you want to this is the new laptop cycle. I'm like, shit, it's all this case. Case is what Alright. We all. What's up? Don't make me flip the lights on and off again. That just happened. All right. Everybody ready? Set.
Go ahead and use this. The whole, like Billy Joel over here. Can you hear me? Yeah. All right, awesome.
So my name is Nic Raboy, and you can't hear me. All right.
I'm just gonna play with knobs until something happens.
Or we also try to
Leave out.
I don't know.
Oh, it's gonna be really loud.
Yeah, don't like it.
Bring it up.
Try it.
Just test. There. Testing. Yes. Sure.
Awkwardly right in your face.
It is pretty close. We'll let it slide here. So my name is Nic Raboy. So I'm in developer relations at what's going on?
Just do a sound check first.
Oh, sound check.
Just make sure everyone's
You're good. You're good.
Oh, all right, yeah. So I'm in developer relations at an open source database company called Couchbase. It's going to be used in this presentation. But the whole fundamental of this presentation is to kind of get you started with developing APIs using hopefully a few technologies that you've never touched before. If you have, great. That'll definitely be very helpful. It was already brought up, based on my terminal screen up there, that it looks like I'm part of the National Rifle Association. I'm not. That's just my first and last name there.
NRA boy.
It is an unfortunate match. That's also my Twitter handle if you want to follow me on Twitter. I get it a lot. I get included in a lot of weird retweets.
That's amazing.
Yeah. If they wanted to buy me out, I would definitely sell out. So nothing there. So we're going to be using Hapi.js. Has anyone used Hapi before? Yes. Just one? Two. All right. Yeah. So I've been using it quite a bit. I used to use a lot of Express. I assume everyone's using Express. Yeah, I used to use a lot of Express. I've actually taken a liking to Hapi. I found it a lot easier for APIs. I'll let you establish your own opinions as we go through. I do want to take a quick survey though. So let's hear from General Assembly about Galvanize. And the other code's cool.
Sure, yeah.
All right, awesome. Yeah, no, I just wanted to get a feel on who's a student coming to extend their education here. And then how many of you are back-end versus front-end? So how about front-end? And then the rest are back-end?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Who's full stack?
Who's full stack front end?
So I definitely prefer the live coding over slides. I find slides to be a little boring. So hopefully the live code will, from start to finish, will be a little more exciting. If not, let me know, and then I can change things up for my future presentations. But I do have a terminal up, and I'll explain things as I go through. I do want to create a new project. So I'll go on my desktop here. And is that visible, by the way? Is that visible by the text?
Embiggen.
Is that
Embiggen a little bit.
too big?
No, make it bigger.
Make it bigger.
Hats.
Zoom in hands.
Hats.
Better?
Did you say Embiggen?
Yes.
I didn't know what that was.
They were good.
All right, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project directory. I'm going to call this DenverScript. I'm going to make 1,000 typos as I go along, so if you can catch it, that would definitely be great. This is one of those new Macs. I just recently got it, so the keyboard's a little funny for me.
Is there a touch bar?
It does have a touch bar. The keys are a little weird if you've never played with these
Have
new
you found the
Macs.
man pages button yet?
No.
That's pretty cool.
Is it pretty cool? I know that the escape key drives me crazy.
Just type anything on Google, there's a man pages button.
Yeah? I'll check that out for sure. So I'll navigate into the DenverScript directory, and I'll go ahead and create a new npm project, so I'll initialize it. What it does is it just creates a package.json. I'm sure you're very familiar with that already. But what we want to do is we want to include a few dependencies here for our project. So we're going to install Hapi. We're going to install a validation framework that's built by Hapi called Joy. Anyone work with Joy outside of Hapi? Because it is compatible outside. I use it for Lambda quite a bit. Has anyone heard of it?
We use it in React.
You use it, all right, perfect. Yeah, it's quite nice in comparison to some alternatives. I'm going to install a Couchbase SDK for Node.js, and then this library called UUID, which will allow me to generate new unique values, so unique strings. I'll save it.
What about yarn?
Yeah.
I tried Yarn for a little bit. I could never get into it. I know it's a lot of people like it, but it just wasn't for me. Yeah. Is everyone using Yarn in here?
No.
Just a few. All right.
And in a mono repo.
So I'm going to go ahead and install another one. I'm going to install NodeMon. Is anyone not familiar with NodeMon? Yeah, so NodeMon is just a cool, convenient package that will allow you to watch a particular file. So that way you can, it'll start and stop for you automatically without intervening. I'm going to save this as a development dependency. And then finally, I'm going to create a project file. All of our code is going to exist in that app.js file. Chances are if you're building a big application, you might want to split that up. But for tonight, our API is going to be smaller than most, so, but it will be very, very readable. So I'll go ahead and open it. I'm going to be using Atom as my preferred editor. And I'll zoom in as well. But let's go ahead and configure NodeMon first. Let me know when this is readable. And if the start theme is not visible because of the light, I can change it. Is it readable?
Go a light theme instead of the screens. Yeah.
Light theme? Alright, perfect.
Light theme. Better for
I didn't change it. Alright, hold on. Is that better?
Yes.
Awesome. I can change my terminal too if you prefer in light theme as well. It's up to you
Did you
guys.
say turtle?
Terminal. Sorry. So I'll go ahead and add NodeMon here. I could have installed it globally, but I'm just going to just install it for the project. So I'll tie it to that start script for npm. This is in my node modules directory. And I'll point it at the app.js file. What I can do is I'll even test it here. I'll say npm start, and it'll just say that because I don't have anything in my app.js file. But it'll continuously reboot. What's up?
I think you can just do NodeMon.
I think so?
Yes. Because it automatically finds your path to your.
I don't have it as a global dependency. So
Doesn't matter.
Anywhere.
Doesn't matter. No, not there.
Oh.
In your yarn start, just do NodeMon, app.js. You don't need any of that. No. Start, NodeMon, app.js. You don't need to specify the path to NodeMon.
Let's try it. Let's see. Because this would be something that I did not know. But if that's the case, it's a lot easier. So you're saying that?
Yep, and then app.js. Yep.
Let's give it a try.
No, yarn start. Or npm start, sorry.
Yeah, my bad. Learn something new. Perfect. Thanks. I'm going to use that from now on. It's a lot easier.
It finds your path.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Is this news for anyone else?
It's a new feature.
Is it?
Ish.
It didn't used to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's
They stole it from yarn.
these yarn guys.
Let him teach.
Anyway, so I'll go back to my app.js file. What I want to do is I want to include those dependencies that I just downloaded. So I'll just say this will just be more or less me typing real quick. Alright, so those are, I think those are the only ones that I installed. So after that, the first step is we probably want to set up Hapi, which is our API server. To do that, what you do is you just say something like var server equals new hapi.server, and you define some configuration information about the server. So in our case, it's going to be host, it's going to be local on my machine. I'm going to say port, I'll give it port 3000. If I wanted to, I can give cores information if you're going to test it with some kind of client front end, etc. So there's a lot of different configurations that you can do. But this is good enough for us. The next step is, well, maybe we want to start that server. So we can say server.start. This is actually a promise. And when it starts, let's just say console.log, and then maybe listening at 3000. Just something to show us that it's working. And we can validate that inside our terminal line. So if we were to try to test this in a web browser, I'll go to localhost 3000. It's just going to say 404 not found because we have no routes configured. We have a server it's running, but we have no routes or endpoints to hit. So we need to configure our endpoints. And is that readable? I mean,
Yeah.
you'll have to let me know because I don't know. All right. So the next step is let's go ahead and create an endpoint. So this will just be a hello world endpoint. But what we can say is we can say server route. We can define what kind of method it is inside this object options. So we can say method. This will just be a get endpoint. We're going to consume data here. We can give it a path. Let's just go ahead and use that root path. And then we're going to define a handler. So this is going to be what we're going to do when we receive the request. And within the handler, we have access to a request. So like the payload, the route parameters, the query parameters, things like that. And then we have this handler variable, which allows us to better formulate other kinds of requests, among other things. So what we can do, so the documentation for the most simple request, they'll say that you can return an object. So just any kind of object. But for a lot of stuff that we're going to be doing with the database, it's going to be asynchronous. So this doesn't tend to work out as great. So it's best if we return one of these more custom responses. So we can say h.response. I can define my object. I'm going to say message. I'll say hello world. I'll save it. I'll go back to my browser, and it says hello. So nothing fancy as of now, or maybe that's the fanciest thing ever. I don't know. He's saying it's pretty damn fancy, so I'll take his word on it. So the next step is, well, maybe we want to worry about posting data. We're not even worrying about our database yet. We're just worrying about getting a few API points in, kind of learning about how you construct these and validate this data. So let's go ahead and try another endpoint. This time around, I'm going to say that this is a post endpoint. The path, let's go ahead and say customer. And for the handler, I'm just going to do the same thing. And I'm going to do a lot of copy paste going forward, so that way I don't have to type all this stuff out 100 times. But we'll do it one more time here. For this time around, let's just return some data that was passed in the post request. We'll start slow. So I'll say return h.response, and we'll just say request paid. So whatever the JSON body of that request is, we're just going to return it back. I'm going to open up Postman for this. I assume everyone in here is using Postman, right? Pretty good tool. I'm using Fiddler. Is that still a thing?
Oh man, you just flashed me back.
So it's all Postman now, right? So maybe we have some more Postman wizards in here, but I don't know how to zoom in on this. Does anyone know how to zoom? I've never figured it out.
Try Command Plus.
It didn't work last time. Oh, it does now. It didn't work last time. I tried this last time. It didn't work. So this is new. This is new.
Kind of worked.
Kind of worked.
Worked on the sidebar.
Did it work in the main content here?
Kind of.
Kinda, only a little. Is it better than nothing?
It's better than nothing.
All right, perfect. So we'll change this to a post request. Uh-oh, now we're getting some weirdness. Okay, we'll need to let that I think I gotta.
I guess
Oh, that worked.
Yeah.
So someone needs to submit their application via a UX for them. So we'll do localhost 3000. This is customer. It's going to be a JSON request. And for the body, I'm just going to say first name. And Postman requires quotes. And I'll send it. And sure enough, it returned it back. So nothing particular there. Now we want to probably validate what the user types in. So I can go back in my code. We never want to just take that whole request and just send it into the database. We want to make sure that it's what we really want and it's safe. So I'll go into this options for the route, and I'll add a config. I'll add this comma because I'll forget it otherwise. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say validate. And I'm going to say, what do I want to validate? I want to validate the payload. And in this, I have the option to use joy to validate any property that comes into that payload. And if I wanted to, I can also validate the query parameters or the route parameters or whatever I really wanted to. So for one, I'm going to say there's a first name. I'm going to say Joy. This is going to be a string. It has to be a string, and it has to be there. It's required. I'm actually going to say the same thing for a last name, but I'm going to change it up a bit. I'm going to also say that there's going to be a type property, but I'm going to say, well, first I'm going to say it's a string. I'm going to say that it's forbidden for the user to include this in the request. Right? If they try to include this in the request, we're going to get an error. And as a result, if they don't include it in the request, I'm going to default it to something. I'm going to default it to customer. So now when I go to my handler, I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm going to save. I'm going to go back into my Postman. I'm going to send this request again. I get a bad request. I didn't customize the response. I can. I'm not going to tonight, but I can. It failed. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to include last name. I'm also going to include the type just to validate that that is working. And I'm going to send it. It still failed. So far so good. So I'm going to wipe it out. I'm going to send it again. And it worked. And it included the type of customer because that's what I defaulted it to. So far so good. It wasn't difficult to validate. Joy has very extensive documentation. You can do a lot with it. I haven't even scratched the surface of what you can do. But you can do a lot outside of Hapi as well. So I use it in Lambda or React. So it's very powerful stuff. The next step, well, we probably want to configure the database at this point. We have data that we want to save, so now we need the database. So has anyone worked with a NoSQL database before? Care to shout out what you've been working with? Is it
Dynamo.
What was it? Dynamo. So key value. Anyone using a document database?
Unfortunately, Mongo.
Database of Mongo? Firestore. Fair enough. Yeah, nothing wrong. So Couchbase is a document database. It's open source, like I said. So it'll be more similar to Mongo in what you can do with it. You're going to store JSON data. And we're going to see how to store our data and query for that data in different ways. So first of all, I do have Couchbase running on my local machine. I can access it through the web dashboard that ships with my installation. So I'm going to log in. And I'm going to zoom out because it's a little funky. But what I'm going to do here, so here is what you get after you install Couchbase. It's more or less a 3 kind of step wizard to get it installed on your machine, whether you choose Docker or AWS or Azure, whatever your preference is, doesn't really matter. But this is a single node instance. If I wanted to, I could add multiple nodes in this cluster. We're not going to worry about scaling. We're going to worry about just data going in and being able to query that data. So that leads us to buckets. So this might be a new concept to a lot of you. So buckets are more like collections of data. So you would have, for any one application, you would have any number of different types of documents. So if you have, say, an e-commerce application or something that we're going to build tonight, we're going to have customer data, we're going to have product data, we're going to have order data, and all of this would exist in a single bucket. Right now, I'm going to be using example bucket. It has nothing in it. I do have a user created for it. I can easily create that in the security area, but it's already created and it already has the roles that I'm expecting. And I'll talk more about Couchbase and these technologies as we go along, so that way it's more show versus tell kind of thing. So I'll go back into my code, and we want to establish a connection to our database now, because we haven't yet. So what I can do is I can say var cluster equals new Couchbase.cluster. I'm going to provide a connection string here. So this, I'm providing it one node. So Couchbase is a peer-to-peer database. There's no master slave, there's no shard nodes, there's no replica nodes. Every node, yes? Oh, did you have a question?
Yeah, what is
100%.
on the other page?
Where?
Name items residence.
Oh. No, that's a good question. I don't know. You've got me fooled there. I can find out. I can find out what exactly that means, and I can definitely get back to that.
what letters in the acronym CAP does Couchbase follow this great thing?
CME. So consistency and partition tolerant. All right. So as I was saying, it's a peer-to-peer database. You only need to connect to one node, and then once you've established that connection, you are now aware of every other node in your cluster. If I wanted to, I could provide multiple hosts. It only needs to connect to one to be successful. But in case that first one's down, it'll try to connect to another one. But we only have one to work with right now. The next step is cluster. So we want to authenticate to that cluster. We want to practice good security here. We want to make sure that our applications are protected and the data in our database is protected. So we're going to say authenticate. And I'm going to say this is the username and password that I chose. It's pretty strong, right?
Super secure.
Yeah, super secure. In reality, you probably want to pass this in through some kind of configuration file, or environment variable, or some other means. Definitely don't hard code it in your application. But after you authenticate, we can open up that bucket, which is also in this instance called example as well. So I can say var bucket equals cluster.openBucket example. So in 3 lines, I've connected to the database. So I'm ready to start adding data and querying that. And feel free to stop me at any time if you have any questions. So we'll go back into this post request, and now we'll worry about storing this customer information into the database. The interesting thing about Hapi is it's expecting a promise back in most cases. Couchbase, as of right now, has callbacks. So promises are coming in the future, but to get around this, you can either, one, use Bluebird, or you can wrap everything in a promise. So I'm going to choose to wrap it in a promise. Both aren't particularly difficult. So what I can do is I can say return new promise. It's going to have a resolve and a reject. And what we want to do is we want to make use of our UUID. So we want to generate a document key. The document keys, they don't need to be unique. They can be auto-incrementing. They can be something like an email address. For simplicity, I think unique would work best for tonight. So we're going to say var ID equals UUID v4. And then what I can do is I can say bucket.insert. So I'm inserting a document into our open bucket. I'm providing it the ID. I'm providing it the payload, which is now validated. You may want to add other validations on top of that outside of what Joy offers. Totally up to you. And then we can use our callback. So we're going to say error result. Now there's this weird thing about Hapi. I don't know if it's a bug or if it's just, I haven't figured it out. So when I'm using these promises, it's expecting 2 results. If I start using reject, something weird happens. Any of the Hapi experts in here? In version 16, I think we're on version 17 now. 16, I didn't have this issue, but 17 is a little weird. No ideas. All right. This is smart crowd. You've already taught me 2 things, right? So what I want to do is I'm going to say if error. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say return resolve. I'm going to say h dot response. I'm going to say message is, what's our message? Our message is going to be error.message. And I'm going to provide it an error code. So this is where it becomes valuable. So we can provide it a code of 500, and that'll register as an error when it reaches the client. So the fact that it's a resolve and not a reject, it doesn't really hurt us in any way. I just always found it a little weird. Now, if it doesn't error out, if it's successful, maybe, the reason why it would error is maybe your key already exists, because we're doing an insert rather than a replace or an upsert. But if it succeeds, we can say something like that's at the top of my mind now. Resolve h.response, and we're going to return, let's go ahead and return the ID. So if we try this, if I went back to Postman and ran my request again, I'm going to send it, it returned an ID this time. If I went back into the database, we go to Documents. This is what the document would look like in the database. So here's my unique key. from UUID. And then here's very flat data. It's JSON data. Typically, you're probably not going to have it this flat. It's going to be very complex. You can have arrays with nested objects and then with more arrays. It can get pretty nutty. It all depends on your data needs. There's a need for everything. But this is what mine looks like right now. So I'll go back. So we have data, and as of right now, we're only doing key value stuff. It's going to evolve more into queryable documents. But we have that, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, save a little bit of typing here. And we want to get that data. So we want to create an endpoint for it. So we want to do a GET request. We want to do an endpoint that's kind of relevant to the data that's in there. And I want to get that particular data based on the ID. So this is a URL parameter, or a route parameter. But what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and actually copy this too. Save us a little bit more. So what I want to do is, I can scrap this ID, we're not generating an ID. But instead of bucket.insert, we're doing bucket.get. And we're getting it from the request parameters. If it's successful, we're basically going to have this, but we're going to return the actual content of that data. So we can say result value. So let's try to do the get. I can copy this ID that was returned. I can add it to the parameter there and change this to a GET request. When I send it, it returned it as I expected. So far, not so bad. It's still key value stuff. It's very, very straightforward as of now. Now we're going to get into a little different stuff. So let's go ahead and add another person to work with. Let's see if I can go back here. One of these is right. All right, we'll change this. I'll go ahead and add another person. Save it, so that way we have two people to work with. How do I query this? How do I get both of these records back in a single request? So now we're no longer working with IDs, now we're trying to get multiple pieces of data back. So we need to do a query, and I'm going to copy this. I'm going to change this because we're going to actually be querying from multiple customers, so this should probably be plural. We're going to leave, there's no validation to do, we don't have to worry about that. But what we can actually do, there's several ways to do this in Couchbase. So one way would be to use a SQL query. So we can actually use SQL queries in Couchbase, even though that's a JSON database. The other way, which I'm not going to elaborate on tonight, is there's an ODM library called Ottoman, which follows the same API spec. It's referenced after couches. So everything in Couchbase is referenced after a couch. There's stuff like pillow fight, there's Ottoman, there's all kinds of tooling around couch accessories. Yeah, it's just pretty funny. But Ottoman is actually modeled, so if you're familiar with Mongoose from Mongo, you might find more comfort in Ottoman because it's like an ORM, it's an ODM. But I find more comfort in writing SQL queries. So I'm going to use a technology called Nic. So N1QL is what Couchbase calls its flavor of SQL. And it's the same SQL spec that you would see in SQL Server, MySQL, things like that. So if you know SQL from one of those technologies, you know SQL in Couchbase. You get extra functions, extra seasoning for it, I guess. Every database has its own kind of flavor of SQL, but it's more or less the same thing. So what I can do is I can create a SQL statement here. So I'm going to call statement. I'm going to say select. You should probably type in actual properties that you're looking for. But I'm going to use an asterisk here. From example is the name of my bucket, where the type equals, and I call it customer. You didn't have to add type to your document. I'm doing that because it now makes it easier to query for those types of documents with SQL. So I'll save that. I need to convert this string into something Couchbase understands. So I'm going to say query equals Couchbase N1QL query dot from string. So now I can actually run that query. So instead of bucket.get, I can do bucket.query. Instead of that, I can pass in a query. And if it's successful, instead of result.value, I'm getting multiple values back. It's now just result. So if I wanted to, I could run this in my browser here. And it returned 2 records now, so exactly what it did. Should have. And now it included the namespace in the bucket. If we wanted to get rid of that, we could either alias our bucket here, or we could just type this for simplicity. So I save it. Now the namespace is gone. This is something I personally would expect to work with in the result set. I probably would want the bucket name in there as well. But you know what? It's whatever meets your needs. It doesn't matter too much. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and create another endpoint. We're gonna get more complicated with what we can do as far as querying goes. But before that, we need probably a different type of document. So we're going to create products. And lucky for us, I'm just going to copy and paste some of this stuff. So I'm going to copy this code that was used to create a customer. I'm going to call it product. And change the validation just a little bit. I'm going to call title. That's going to be a string. I'm going to have a price. That's going to be a number. And for the type, I'm going to default it to product. Everything else is going to remain the same. I don't have any specific logic inside of the handler itself. So I'm going to do a post request, get some data in there. Call this, and give it a price, $59.99, and this will be a price. I'll send it. Worked out as expected. I can go validate that in my bucket list. So now I have 2 different types of documents in this one bucket. Looks like this. It looks like what we expected. So I'll go ahead and go back into my code. One document is probably enough for this example. I won't create a query for selecting all products or a single product. Instead, what we want to focus on is maybe creating an order. A problem, at least a problem that's always been for me when I used to work with Oracle a lot, is working with data that should probably be snapshotted, like data that should not change after it's created, but it's related to some other piece of data. So in this case, maybe a receipt. So maybe you have a customer, they've placed an order, and you want to make sure that when the product price changes or their customer information changes, you don't want their receipt to change. So instead of having to work with all kinds of craziness, it might make sense to store all of that data as it is in a separate document, so that way it stays in that same state for all time. So we're going to create a receipt document. So I'm going to copy this post request. I'm going to change this to maybe order, because that would be a relevant endpoint. Maybe you're on Amazon or something. For our payload, instead, let's go ahead and have a customer ID. You have your front-end application. You're probably going to be passing IDs around rather than data for the information for the customer or the products. This will be a string for product IDs, plural. Well, this will probably be an array. It's going to be required, but we're also going to say, you know what, it needs at least one product in there. And for the items, we're going to say they have to be of type string. So this is more fanciness with joy. Again, it's powerful stuff. For type, we don't need a type. So the first step is, well, let's go ahead and create a query. So we're going to say var statement equals, and I'm actually going to do a multi-line. And sadly, I just figured that out not too long ago, that the backticks are multi-lines. So I'm definitely not a pro Node developer like I know a lot of you are.
Also,
what's that?
You can interpolate in backticks.
Oh yeah?
That may be a little excessive for this one. Let's just stick with this. So let's go ahead and create another query. And I am not a pro query writer. If you want to top my query, I encourage you to. I'll give you some stuff. If I have some Amazon credit, I'll give you if you can top my query. But I'm going to use some queries here. I'm going to say select. I'm going to say customer. I'm going to use the star here. From example. As customer, so I'm aliasing it. And I'm going to say use keys. So I'm going to say find me all data where the keys match customer ID. Now, this is a named parameter here. Anyone know why you should be using parameters in our query?
SQL injection?
Yeah, so just because this is a NoSQL database, you can still fall victim to SQL injection. So we want to avoid that by using parameters. Even if we've done validation up here, it's still best that we validate further. So we have a customer ID. We're going to alias that as customer. I'm going to do another line here. This is going to be products. I'm going to alias that as product. This is going to be another name parameter. And I'm going to say that this is product.
Does Couchbase support common table expressions?
Like,
Just like the when statement, like you would get in Postgres. So rather than doing a subselect to specify multiple CTEs above it.
so I'm not too familiar with that, but what you can do in Couchbase, and this is where my total lack of SQL in general comes in, is you can do joins. Now, if I wanted to, and if anyone knows how to turn this into a complex query with some joins in there, with some like left joins, right joins, and all that good stuff, I would love to see it. But you could do whatever you would expect in the databases. And I don't know much about Postgres, so I can't comfortably answer that question.
It's an Oracle too.
It's an Oracle? I'll have to check. I don't know.
Huh?
What statement?
Just common table expressions. When, so like doing a when expression at the top. So rather than doing subselect, you would do your when as customer and then your select statement.
So this is without me actually looking into this statement. There's a let and letting operator in Couchbase that may do what you're after.
Not sure.
Yeah, I have to look into what exactly that is.
Look up CTEs.
CT, all right. So I do have this. What I'm also going to do is I'm just going to add a type here. I'm going to call this receipt as type. I just hard put that in there. So before I actually add this receipt into the database, we should probably just run the query and see what it returns, see what we're after here. So query, this is going to be query. Instead of payload here, this is where we enter our named parameters. So the first named parameter is customer ID, and that is request payload customer ID. And these two, they don't have to match. The name parameter and whatever I have in payload, I just chose it for them to match. They don't need to have the same name. I'm also going to have product IDs, request payload product IDs, and as a response here, we're just going to have the result. And I think that should be fine. So I'll go back up. I'm going to copy this. This, I believe, is a product. I'm going to create another request. This is order. I'm going to say product IDs. This is an array. Now, customer ID. Let's figure out what my customer ID is. Paste that in. Hopefully it works when I run it. No, got an error. So I probably have query is not defined. Yeah. So it's still string. So I'll say query equals Couchbase dot nickel query from string. Yep. Copy again. I'll run that. So it loaded the data. So this is kind of what I was expecting to receive. I mean, it could be manipulated just a little bit. Like, for example, customers in array. Well, we're probably only ever going to have one customer on a receipt. So what I could do is I could change this a bit. I can say that this is array item 0, or array index 0. So if I ran it again, now it's just an object, probably a little more along the lines of what we're after. So now let's just save that in Couchbase here. So inside of the bucket.query, I can do a bucket.insert, and let's see if I can do some copy paste here. I realize I missed the V there. So if it's successful, the bucket.insert, I'll remove this line, and that should, instead of the request payload, I'm now going to say the result of the previous query. So if I run it, I got my ID back as I expected.
I can go back to my documents, and we have a receipt here. So far, so good. So there's some other things that you can do with Couchbase that might be useful in your development. So for example, let's say that my documents become quite large. I don't want to have to transfer those large documents, let's say 20 megabytes around the network on every request. So instead, what I can do is I can do what's called sub-document mutation, where I send up a request to the server, tell the server what exactly I want to edit inside of the document, and it will do that without first retrieving it. Same thing can be applied for obtaining parts of a document from the server as well. This is an alternative to doing that with NoSQL, so the SQL statements. So you could do upserts, inserts, deletes, all of that great query stuff in NoSQL. But if you didn't want to, you have alternatives as well, such as the subdoc. So we've created an order, there's no credit card information. So let's maybe add some credit card information to an existing user. So let's add a put in. So I'm going to do a copy paste here. Instead of a post, we're doing an edit, so we're going to do a put. This is going to be, let's say, customer, credit card, and let's go ahead and say that this is for customer ID. Now, typical credit card information, we might have provider, we might have number, and we might have expiration. And this is going to be a string. I'm going to make them all strings. There may even be a credit card validator or join. I don't know off the top of my head. So for now, we're just going to play it safe and say that it's all strings.
There's not one.
There's not one. All right. But there could be a date validator, right, for expiration. There probably is.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll save it. That's what we expect to have as far as a credit card. Now inside the handler, what I can do now instead is, well, we're not creating IDs here. So what I can do is, first of all, we're going to change this insert to mutate in. And I'm going to say request.params.id. This is for the customer, so we know what our ID is. The next part of this is going to be array append. And we'll call it credit cards. We're going to work with the payload, and then true. And I'll clean it up and I'll explain what I did because it's a little messy the way I did it kind of backwards here. I may even have some parenthesis problems in there somewhere. But what I'm doing is I have a mutate in. I provided the ID. I provided the mutation that I want to do. So I've chosen I want to create an array and I want to add data to it. The true indicates that if that particular property in the document doesn't exist, it's going to create it. If I had that set to false, it would error on me if it already existed. If I wanted to, I could do things like insert, replace. I could do any kind of mutation here. I'm just choosing to do an append for an array. And then I'm going to execute it. If it's successful, maybe I'll just return the ID of the document I'm working in. I'll save it. Let's go ahead and try it out. See if I can make any mistakes there. So I'll change this to customer, and this is credit cards. Did I do a singular or plural? Plural. I did it? Plural? All right. I'll get a ID here. Nope, that's a product. Go ahead and add it here. For the body, so I have provider. Visa for the number. Let's go ahead and who wants to give you a credit card number?
4242.
Yeah.
42.
This one has some letters in it. It's one of those exotic
That's the stripe test number.
All right. This is expiration, and again, we're just doing random strings here. We have no validator, really, just string validator. Expiration up. Yep. All right. Double better.
Fancy way to say it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna send it. 44 not found. I think I did a single one. For credit cards. Oh, that too. So let's first try that. All right. So I think it was just credit card. Send it. Got the ID back. If I went into my documents, or I just refresh,
Right now I have credit cards, so I have an array of credit cards. So that saves us from having to pass around potentially large documents. And it really comes down to how you've chosen to model your documents. You may never have large documents. They may always be small and some kind of have some kind of relationship where you use joint queries or things like that. Or you may want to store everything in a single document. That's totally up to you as well. That's kind of all I had as far as material. I'd be happy to answer the questions. If I don't know the answer, I'll definitely get back to you. Yes?
Hey, so awesome job live coding first. Thanks. As somebody who uses Express every day, what tipped you to Hapi? What were the things that tipped you to say, hey, I like this over?
So when I was using Express, I like Express. There's nothing wrong with it, but I felt like it was heavy to do anything. So with middleware and all this extra stuff that you had to do, it just became a lot of work. And to be able to add validators and create these endpoints very simplistically, Hapi was a good sell for me.
So how would you handle middleware? Is the middleware here you're passing all your options in this object, or would you just authorize middleware?
So I haven't done a lot with that, but I believe you just pass it into the object here. What the good thing about Hapi is there's a lot of that stuff is included. That's very pretty. A lot of that stuff is included already. So, like for example, cores. I mean, with Express, you'd have to download that cores package or do your own manipulations. That, for example, is already there. Yes.
Hapi support AWS blocks.
Support what? I didn't hear that.
OAS.
Eight?
AWS.
I'm not sure.
I think AWS. I think that's the application stage.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
The end of stage.
There are some plugins for Hapi that will do that.
Alright, I don't want to get in the weeds here, so I'll just be back.
Is there a question over here?
So I think with CouchDB, using it in memory versus on disk, this is just new.
So
is that a switch?
First topic, first of all. So Couchbase and CouchDB are totally different databases.
So you don't CouchDB. Are you Couchbase? Are you running it in memory usually, or is it usually on disk like Mongo?
Yeah, so it's both. So when you create a bucket, you have the opportunity to decide what kind of bucket you want to create. So, for example, you have a Couchbase bucket, which is memory and disk. Everything goes to the memory and then asynchronously persists to the disk, or in the other direction as well. You have a memcache bucket, which is all memory. This is for key value operations. People generally use it for caching other databases. And you have the ephemeral buckets, which is all memory, but allows for query and full text search and other things like that.
There's a lot of controversy online. Why is it better than Mongo, in your opinion?
Yeah, so there's a few things. So one, it's a peer-to-peer database. It's very easy to scale. I don't know if anyone's worked with more than one node of Mongo before. One node in Mongo works great, fantastic. But as you start scaling up, they have a lot of complexity in their nodes. Shard nodes, replica nodes, master slave. It gets a little rough. So having, was that?
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. Worst. With Couchbase, it's just one click to add your node, and then it's done. Another thing, a lot of people like writing SQL queries. I'm not good at it, but I like writing them. So that's an advantage as well. And then the whole caching thing is an advantage because with Mongo, you have to use Redis or install something else on top of it.
Is there a host equivalent like MLab for Couch?
So it's a work in progress. So right now there's a managed instance of Couchbase coming out, but kind of like a self-service kind of MLabs thing is probably in the next year's timeline. Well, I appreciate everyone coming out. Definitely, if you've never started before,
Awesome. Thank you. I think there's some pizza left over, so feel free to still dig in there. There's some beer. Got stickers. We got stickers. We got to make sure to stay warm. use. I'll take a few.
For those of you that that contributed to the what's going on in JavaScript land, I think there was a lot of submissions, but only across 3 people. So all 3 of you get. Garrett, do you have one yet? Oh, okay. Well then, great. Okay. Anyways, and then as always, bring the stuff that you're excited about, and then you get a free membership to Barrett Masters. Anything else, Matt?
No, I know I did.
Thanks, guys.
I just thought it was funny.